Hey, looking for a better day and a way to build a better life? Listen, learn, and live better here. Welcome to A Better Day, A Better Life TV show. I'm your host, Debbie Givens, and we have a lot for you today. We're going to start out with an affirmation to open our minds and to activate the higher conscious. And then the topic of the show for today, it's part of my series on making extra income. We're going to be talking about residual income, and I'll be talking to Gene Pomerants about that. He's going to teach us about residual income in the form of single level marketing. And then I have a life-saving PSA from the fire department, and we'll close that out with a tip of the week. And that'll be decluttering. And we'll close it out with some music or grooving and get your day moving. So let's get started. Affirmation of the day. We're going to take 3 deep breaths. Let's start. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and release. Take another breath in, hold it, and release. And take this last breath. Take it in, take it deep, hold it, and release. And so that we can affirm today that my energy radiates with positive prosperity energy every moment of the day. Let's know that again. My energy radiates with positive prosperity energy every moment of the day. Last time. My energy radiates with positive prosperity energy every moment of the day. Breathe in and release. And now we're open for the lesson of the day. As I mentioned in the opening, our topic is going to be putting us on a path for prosperity and abundance, and we're going to start with the idea of residual income. My guest today is a man who definitely breathes prosperity and residual income daily, and that's why he's doing so well, and he's going to tell us how we can do the same. Gene will tell you the rest of his story when he gets here. And Gene Pomerants, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks for coming to the show.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
So, Gene, we met through a third party, and it had to do with some sort of business. And I've been telling the viewers that I have a series here about making extra income. And you have a great story, where you come from, the business that you were in before. The business that we're about to talk about is, why don't you tell us about how you got started, what you were doing before you got into this new business?
So my background is I was a professional photographer. I did that for 17 years.
And was that your own business?
It was my own business, yeah. I started out working freelancing like everybody else, and then opened up a studio, opened up a second studio, so achieved a high level of success, but also had the shortcomings that come with success, working 60, 80 hours a week, not seeing my family. And then about 11, 12 years ago, my youngest child, my daughter, got really sick. And it was a rough couple of years. She was on medication, doctors, and I realized I have no time to spend with my family during that time.
Because you were working all that time?
Yeah, like I said, 60, 80, sometimes even 100 hours a week.
And that is while it was your own business?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you own your own business, you kind of have to put in those kind of hours? Is that one?
I was the photographer, I was the salesperson, I was the plumber, the contractor sometimes.
Oh my God, where's your staff? Where's your staff?
Being a control freak, you kind of do things yourself.
Gee, I know somebody that does that. Okay.
So when that happened, I just looked at my life and said, okay, yeah, I'm doing well financially, but I have no time. And that's when I started learning about passive income streams, and I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, which is one of my favorite books.
What is it called? Repeat it.
The 4-Hour Workweek.
Okay, who wrote that?
By Tim Ferriss.
Ah, The 4-Hour Workweek.
4-Hour, great book. I
imagine that.
You know what, the title of the book is enough to sell it, because like you don't even need to read the book, you just, okay, I want to have a 4-hour work week, that's enough.
Right, how do I line up what I do in my life to boil down to 4 hours of real work that produces enough income for me to live as if I worked 68 hours.
Exactly. You just summarized the book perfectly.
Oh.
And so nobody needs to read it. No, it's a great book. I highly recommend it. But basically, the book taught me the questions to ask. Ah. Because we all want certain things in life. We want to have a 4-hour work week. Like, who wouldn't, right? Everybody wants to make more money.
Well, we want more time, and we want more time to do, the things that matter.
Exactly.
And to a lot of people, family matters.
Yeah.
Hobbies matter. So
travel, whatever it is when you're a successful business person or you have a high-paying job, you're limited to the amount of time you get off. So most people will work 48, 50 weeks out of the year, and so you have 2 to 4 weeks a month to enjoy life. But what about the rest of your life? And what I started realizing is that I don't care what your job is, whether you're a photographer, a doctor, a lawyer, a taxi driver, your real job is to work to pay the bills.
Right.
And it doesn't matter at what level you're doing it, because a doctor will have higher bills than a taxi driver. And so that's when I realized, I don't want to work for the rest of my life. I want to find something that works, to create for me the hypothetical 4-hour work week. And again, that book taught me the right questions to ask.
Wow. A lot of people just would be happy, let's put it this way. And that's probably a question, what would make you happy? Would be happy to be able to pay their bills and not sweat it. A lot of people, I think the majority of the population, those of us, the 99%, or if you think about the top 5%, okay, then the other 95, us in the 95%, are, looking to either live comfortably, but not struggle. And so they're not thinking of being millionaires and billionaires. But even living at this level is a struggle. And
in this economy, it can be.
And it's a misnomer. The economy doing well, it's like, people have to ask themselves, well, am I doing well? Because then you feel funny that you're getting there's these forecasts or news reports saying that the economy is doing well, and you're thinking, okay, I'm employed, but I'm not doing well. I mean, I'm not doing well as the economy. So what's wrong with me? Exactly,
and there's the macro economy and the micro economy in your own house. So just because the macro economy is doing well and stocks are up, well, did you have a lot of money invested in stocks that they went up and now you made millions of dollars? No. So that's kind of a false representer of whether the economy is doing well, because again, overall, yes, if the economy is doing well, it benefits everybody somewhat. But if you're struggling to pay the bills and now your income is maybe 5% higher or 10% higher, you're struggling slightly less, but you're still struggling.
No, in fact, we're all still struggling, even if your income, they talked about finally there was some gains in income, or average income, but not everybody got that raise.
Right.
I mean, I know people that have made the same amount of money for 7 years.
Right.
And so, but the bills keep going up.
Exactly.
For the same thing, for the same service. So we are hoping to be enlightened by you today in an area that we might get into to provide extra income in the house, and so that you don't struggle when something's going on with the job, it burns down, whatever happens, that you're not vulnerable to your one source of income right now.
Exactly.
And so that's so I'm doing this series of shows about extra income, because in some cases it might become income that saves you, from bankruptcy or homelessness. So.
Yeah.
And so the type of income we're talking about is residual income.
Yeah.
Okay. And it does require some effort. It's not going to be a 4-hour work week, is it?
Exactly. No, it didn't take me working 4 hours a week to be able to work 4 hours a week. It all depends on how much time people have. So the average person is working 40 hours a week. They're probably spending another 5 to 10 hours a week, probably about 10 hours a week commuting. Most people commute an hour to work, an hour home.
Right.
So you got about 50 hours a week, maybe 60 hours a week that you're dedicating to your job. Now, if you have a family, you have some family time. The average person, from the people who I coach, I found has about 10 hours a week that they can dedicate to something on the side. Some might have as much as 15, some might have 20 if they only work part-time. But the average person, I would say, is about 10 hours a week. And on 10 hours a week, you have a lot of options what you can do with that. Unfortunately, the average person, what they do with those 10 hours a week is they watch TV. Or or they do something frivolous that's not going to make them any money.
Right. And so you're saying that we should be thinking, one tip here is that you have free time, even if it's just on the train home, because you live in Long Island and it's taking you 2 hours to get home.
Right.
What can I do in my downtime that makes me some money?
So on the train, so let's take it on the train. So the first thing where you start making money is not in what you do, is how you think. So if you're on the train, going somewhere, or driving in your car even, you can either listen or read a book. You know, we can listen to books these days. Anything in personal development. One of my favorite books. I love throwing books out.
And that's a great, yeah.
I love throwing books out because
yes.
the way I got to where I am is not from the way I grew up. I was pre-med in college, nothing to do with where I wound up in my careers.
Oh, that's interesting.
I learned all this stuff by reading books, and my favorite couple of books for people to read if they're just want to get into the entrepreneurial mindset.
Yes, yes.
Is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, yes.
By Dale Carnegie.
Yes.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
You know, that book has a predecessor, and so I'm a little miffed.
The 12 Laws.
Well,
or it's the 15 Laws of Success.
Yeah,
or
48.
16, something like that.
There's so many books that talk about success, and it's not bad to read a number of them.
Yeah.
You know, and then after a certain point, you have to kind of get started.
Yeah, but start with those couple of books, and
right.
just to get yourself in the mindset of an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Because that's the first thing you need. And while you're doing that, there's a lot of things you can do. So if you have 10 hours a week, you can go get a part-time job and take all that money and start investing that money. Learn how to invest. I'm not going to obviously we're not going to teach people how to invest here.
No.
But that's one way how you can start building up your nest egg. Work those 10 hours a week. If you're not super entrepreneurial, you don't know what direction to go into, get a part-time job, 10 hours a week, and learn how to invest that money.
Now, I'm not a big fan of investing, to tell you the truth. And I feel like people should invest in themselves because the stock market is, for lack of a better word, wicked game.
Exactly.
To me.
Yeah.
And after seeing what happened to my retirement savings, I wouldn't be amused to be, you know, even having a chunk of money to invest. I'd rather invest in real company, real people who are going to find a way to hit that prosperity, or in myself and other things around me, because it seems these days now. Recently, you know, the stock market has had those drops, which I know make some people nervous or even go as far as panicking. Frank, let's be frank, in a part-time job, how much are you going to make? You're not going to make enough to be investing in stocks and bonds.
Well, that's for the non-entrepreneurial person. That's for the non-entrepreneurial. And you know what? People have to start. People have to start where they are.
Right.
People have to start where they. Sometimes I'll sit down with people and they'll ask me for advice and what do I do? And you know, I'll ask them questions. And if I find out they're not entrepreneurial and they're not willing to put in the action to be an entrepreneur, because the advantage of a part-time job, let's say you get something $15 an hour, you're getting $15 an hour.
Yeah, which is good.
If you're an entrepreneur, you don't get an hourly rate. So some people can't make that transition.
Right.
So I tell them until you can make that transition, until you can be mentally strong enough to be an entrepreneur, go get a part-time job. But for those that are ready to be an entrepreneur, to understand that, you know what, you're not going to get an hourly wage, you're going to have to invest most likely time. In some places, maybe a little bit of money, but the way I teach people is residual income streams and home businesses without financial investments, because I think anybody can start that way.
Good, because there's that big obstacle is not there. You're having to invest X amount. I mean, some people are willing to borrow it, you know, or pooling. I mean, certain groups of people will pool together to do that sort of thing. But
I think if you're going to start some kind of home-based business and you need to borrow money to do that, you're in the wrong business, because there's the risk involved. If you're already struggling financially, taking that risk I don't think is a worthwhile risk. The one capital we all have is time. And what people need to look for is finding businesses where time investment is enough. And a lot of people get into a lot of different things. Like people, if you go Google home-based business, a million different things are going to show up. Primarily, a lot of multi-level marketing companies show up, which is multi-level marketing is I forgot how many billion industry it is, but it is a huge industry. And unfortunately, a lot of people get into that industry not knowing what to expect out of it.
Exactly.
And they're looking for residual income from it, yet understanding that most of those businesses have no residual income, they have leveraged income. And the biggest question I teach people to ask is to figure out if the business you're looking at is it a leveraged business or a residual business. And the difference between the two is leveraged income you can have with any business. You have a traditional business. When I had my photography studio, I had employees. When those employees worked, I made money off their efforts. That's called leveraged income.
Okay, good.
In a lot of those network marketing companies, we won't name any names, but I know a lot of people have done them. People do them. People hear about them. People get into a company and like, well, here's how you make money. You go recruit your friends, and your friends are going to recruit their friends, and their friends are going to recruit their friends. And there's usually a product, usually a good product involved. Unfortunately, it's usually an overpriced product. So the only people that are actually buying those products from those companies are the ones who are trying to qualify for a commission check. And when I sit down with those people, ask them, okay, let me ask you this one question. If you and your entire team stop working today, what happens to your income a year from now? And once they think about it, like, oh, it'll be almost nothing, but that's not possible. Yeah, of course that's not possible. Well,
into a rude awakening.
I've got some orange flavored Kool-Aid. I've got some grape flavored Kool-Aid.
Pick the one that goes down the rabbit hole. Okay, so, and that's interesting. So, in choosing a home-based business, when you mentioned coaching, you're coaching some people. They come to you and they say they want to get into either something specific, or they want you to steer. They want you to steer them into something. What are the questions you're asking them, and we should be asking ourselves about, as far as finding something to do on the side that brings us income?
So I don't necessarily ask them questions. I teach them the questions to ask. And I think that's more important, because if they're coming to me and they want to start a home-based business, they already know they want to create something. So I will ask them some questions. The question I ask them is, what do you want to get out of it, I guess. Like, do you want to make an extra $100 a month? Do you want to make an extra $10,000 a month?
And how soon? I mean, do you need it immediately, or is it something because you have something that you do now that brings in, you're comfortable, or you're just, you're where you are comfortable at, but you need to, find something else because you're going to be phasing that out, or whatever's going on in your life. And then there's people who need it immediately, and it's like, help me find something right now.
Right. And again, it all has to do with what people's needs are and individual needs.
Right.
But the question I teach them to ask is, if you're looking for a residual business, what's the reorder rate? So that's a question I teach them to ask. So for example, if they're looking at a home-based business that sells a widget, whatever the widget is, and you want to create residual income. Well, if you sell that widget to a customer, is the customer going to buy that widget once, or are they going to buy it once a year, once a month? How often are they going to repeat that buy? The only way you have residual income is people are buying that on a regular basis. If you want reliable residual income, most of our bills are monthly. So you want a business that has monthly residual income, or monthly or multiple times a month repeat purchases. So those are just some of the questions that I teach them to ask.
Let me ask you, is the best, or do you steer people to, or people are interested in product-based businesses as opposed to service businesses?
It depends on what people want.
Like being a photographer, for example. That's
a service-based.
It's service-based.
Yeah, but
although
it produces a product, right?
Okay, so you know where I was going with that. It's like, okay.
Yeah, my favorite type of businesses are more in the affiliate marketing arena, which we've spoken about before. And it's basically, affiliate marketing is primarily products. People will buy products on an ongoing basis more than they will a service, unless it's some service that you have to buy anyway. But there's not a lot of profit in those. Like, for example, again, some people do work with electricity or cell phones, and it's nothing wrong with that. There's not a lot of profit in that, because there's so much competition. But if you're talking about products and what people buy on a regular basis, it may be consumer goods. There's a lot of variety, a lot of different price points. So if you can find a balance of quality and price point, you can create something that's ongoing. Again, it all depends what people want. The biggest question I ask them is, and this is something what I look for in a person when I start working with them, is, are you coachable and do you have good work ethic? And what I mean by coachable is because there's a lot of things out there, and if you find the right mentor can teach you everything. But if you think you know everything, or when the mentor starts teaching you and you're asking, well, like, oh, can I do it this way? Can I do it that way? No, do it the way I'm teaching you. Why do you have a mentor?
Because it's already proven, right? You've already, and you're in a very structured and environment, management team and whatnot, which would help newbies like me, who have, I prefer, to be in a structured environment and could be, I'm trainable and whatnot. What other traits do I need to be able to
succeed?
To succeed in that.
So the first one is being coachable. We just discussed that. The second one is having good work ethic. And you can be the most coachable person in the world and agree with your mentor 100% and say, oh, wow, this is great, I'm going to do that. but are you actually going to do that? So
and it works the other way too, I
Yes.
think. You know, so people who
you got a great
you
work
can't
ethic
trust them,
and
you
do
can't tell them
everything.
what to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You could be a ship without a rudder without a ship, but you're still, if you don't have both, you're not going to succeed. So the second part is having good work ethic. If you have 10 hours a week, a good mentor will tell you, okay, during these 10 hours, you're going to do this, 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 and this. If you have good work ethic, you will do that, maybe even a little extra. If you don't have good work ethic, you're going to think about how good this is, how good your mentor is, how good your business is, but then you're going to go watch TV. Or go on Facebook.
Or do something, or do only put in a half effort as opposed to and not ask questions. Well, this is great advice. I think some of us are going to have to do some personal development before we are successful in whatever we choose along those lines, which is, you know, to make residual income. We might, you know, look for a mentor or a coach. I think I would prefer to have a coach, you know, somebody to run things by and to give me some points to follow. I kind of like that thing. So you folks are interested in that sort of thing and being coached in a line of residual income. Gene Pomerants, you have a system that people can come to you to engage in, and so we'll have that information for the audience. And I want to thank you profusely for coming on the show and talking about that. Again, I've been doing a series and to explain to people there are ways to make extra income while you do what you're doing. We talked about having side gigs, and this case is something which is passive. Right. Way to make income. So I'm grateful that you've come on the show and helped us out to understand that. And so I want to thank you for coming to the show, and hopefully you can come back again and tell us how you make those figures that you make.
I would love to.
After being a photographer, and so it's been great. So thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going to move on to our next segment. I want to thank you again, and we'll have you on the show again. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're ready for some advice here. I have a PSA for you. It's a very important video about safety. Recently in the news, there's been quite a number of fires, and one that particularly caught everybody's attention. It was a fire in the Bronx, where 13 people perished after their building went on fire. And this happened because where the fire started, a first floor apartment, the people in the apartment ran out the door and left the door open, and the fire flew up the rest of the building, and a number of people didn't get out. So I have a PSA here for you from the FDNY. They've been aggressively promoting Close the Door. So we're going to show you this video from the fire department, the FDNY, called Close the Door. Very important.
There's a fire in your home. You have to get out. And you can prevent that fire from spreading and harming others. Close the door. For more fire safety information, visit fdnysmart.org. Remember, closing the door saves lives.
Wow. But you know, by the end of December 2017, the FDNY was reporting that that deaths from fires are up 50% over last year. And already in January, there have been 2,888 fires. And so the level of fires, the number of fires has increased to the point where it will outpace next year if it continues at that rate of 2,888 a month. So it's very important that we go to the FDN website and follow some of their suggestions for, you know, dealing with being in a fire. If a fire starts in your house, in your building, so that it cuts down on the number of deaths and everyone hopefully can get out safe. So please visit newyorkcity.gov/FDNY, and also on YouTube they have a number of videos. So thank you, FDNY. I want to thank my guest, Gene Pomerants, for enlightening us on residual income and the questions we need to ask. And my crew, Linda, Bill, Stanley, Tom, Lisa, and our sponsor, New TTB Records, for the food and everything else. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of A Better Day, A Better Life. You learned about residual income. You learned that you need to close your door if you're running out of the house and there's a fire. And I'm your host, Debbie Givens. Thanks for watching. Next week, we're going to get into some self-development where we can incorporate some principles, spiritual and mental, to help us realize our potential for prosperity and for reaching our goals. Thanks.